Hello cookies, how are you doing? So it's Sugary Lab again. It's good to see you guys again. Thanks for looking at the recipes and hope you guys been trying it out. This is a really amazing one. I'm really excited to show you guys this one. So it's called the NW Burger, as you can probably see from the title. Basically, when I first came up with the NW Burger, it's actually mini ones. This is actually a second time that I've made this, but this time I'm making it big for a friend's request. She's trying to order it for a friend's birthday and they wanted something special, so we thought, why not try this again, but in a bigger version, because it tasted so good. I wanted to briefly talk about the origin of how this came about. NW Burger, the name itself comes from a friend. It was actually a friend that kind of gave me a few suggestions when I was trying to design this cake, and it was close to her birthday and I wanted to give her something special, so I ended up naming the burger after her. So it's a Nicole Williams burger. Originally I came up with the mini burgers because I thought it would be fun to do something that's fake food kind of stuff, because it's kind of the hype, I guess, at the moment. Sorry about the noises as well, because there's construction right next door. I'm trying to record this whilst they're not doing stuff as much as possible, which is pretty difficult. But yeah, back to the burger. So basically, a lot of people have done burger cakes. Usually the go-to is with a lot of fondant and then some sort of cupcake base. But I really wanted to make it something simple enough for people to make, but taste really good, because personally I'm not crazy about fondant. It's really amazing. It has so much versatility. You can see amazing people doing amazing stuff on YouTube in all these channels. So really, I don't think I need to be doing much of that. If I ever want to like put any videos of that up there, it'll probably just be because I actually want to learn the skills at some point. But at this stage, I really prefer to make things that I find taste really good and have that kind of appearance too, something that looks very sophisticated or up to scratch. And in this case, it's basically something that looks realistic, but without having to use the fondant. And I think it was really fun because it gives you the challenge of thinking what things would end up naturally looking like the things you're looking for without having to use fondant, as a sort of like a easier way out for myself, because there's so many methods out there related to that. So I really wanted to try something different. And when I was thinking about it, so I was trying to think about the individual layers. Brownie is pretty much a given. It's used a lot, and there probably are other ways to do it, which I will probably think about in the long term, but at this point, it was pretty much the easy way out. I just added a bit of coffee, made it a little bit more sort of a complex kind of flavor. The recipe I found had a lot of brown sugar in it, so it actually stays really well in the fridge, because there were some other components like ganache that are better off in the fridge. The buns, I found whoopie pies. I basically googled up whoopie pies and looked for something that looked, from the pictures, already like a bun, so I knew that when I bake it, the color, the texture would all be what I'm looking for, which is a really good technique if you're looking up recipes or trying to write up some new recipes. The sauce is strawberry curd. I was trying to play around with other kind of fruits and kind of that can be made into curds, apart from the very standard lemon, orange curds that you often see. I wanted to see things like berries that you don't usually always see. And the best part is it already lends the color of almost like tomato relish and tomato sauce. The only thing is, this time around when I did it, I didn't have a juice blender, which is how I actually originally made it. Originally, you would blend up the fruit first with everything else, then strain it and then cook it, and then probably strain it again just to make sure there's no lumps. What I would recommend is, if you're doing this method that I did in the video of just processing everything, then cooking it and then straining it, I would probably strain it and then process it one more time just to get it really, really smooth, because I found that this time it wasn't as smooth and it was a little bit more lumpy. Actually didn't have to use any food coloring this time, which was great, but it was definitely a little bit different and more relish looking than tomato sauce. As you can probably see if you go to my Instagram on Sugary Lab, you will be able to find the mini version, the picture of the mini version of the NW burgers. Ganache, I also played up a little bit. The white chocolate is great for cheese because it naturally melts at room temperature and just kind of goes down and has that droopy effect. You could probably even use a flame torch or something to slightly warm up the edges to kind of make it melt a little bit more, to get it even more realistic. The only thing I did different this time was also play with the white chocolate ratio to cream. White chocolate to cream ratio. Just because last time when I did it, it was quite thin and the cream ratio was a little higher, so that it was a little harder to remove from the baking paper, or if you use cling wrap, either way would have been a bit harder. I had to end up using a hot palette knife and kind of gently scrape it to help it ease off the paper. This time around it was a bit thicker and the ratio was a bit higher for the chocolate, so it came off pretty easily. Of course you can tweak that a little bit more and find the perfect texture. A little bit of translucency actually sometimes works a bit better, but I think this time around with the kind of more solid look, it almost looks like there's kind of very fake kind of cheese look, which is pretty common in cheeseburgers, which is the kind of look we were going for. So that's pretty cool. This cake is really heavy, so if you're going to be transporting it somewhere, I recommend freezing it or keeping it really cold, and then just have someone like carry it for you if you're driving, etc. Just be really careful about that. And you will probably need a skewer to hold it together just in case, because there are a bit of like liquid inside like the sauce, so it kind of will probably slide a bit. And it's a good chance to make a little flag for yourself. Using any sort of craft paper makes it look pretty fancy. I just use regular paper and just jazz it up with a little bit of drawing and stuff. Now, with the onion rings, again, trying to do something a little bit more original, because a lot of people generally go for, the usual go-to is to make fake burgers and then accompanied by some sort of fake fries, which is probably usually some sort of cake coated with something, etc, etc. So a lot of people have done that, so I figured that's pretty easy, so why not up the challenge for myself again. So I thought, what else goes with burgers usually? Probably not cheeseburgers necessarily, but a lot of burgers do come with onion rings, and I figured what is an easy way to do onion rings, because I already put in so much time into the burger. I didn't want something too complicated, and I had some puff pastry at home, so I thought, great, puff pastry. What else have I used recently in that recipe? I was like, oh, in other recipes around that time I used applesauce, and I had some left over. So I thought, spray some really thinly, twist it up to get a little bit more texture and thickness so that it's not flat, and then just kind of lightly sort of tie it together. And I know breadcrumbs coating, that's kind of like similar to how it is if it's deep fried, so I thought, why not just do that for shortbreads? And that's how the idea essentially came about. This time around I did it a little different as well. I actually used both eggs and a bit of applesauce as the egg wash, essentially, to help adhere some of the breadcrumbs for the shortbread cookie. Added a bit of cinnamon inside to help sort of, I guess, make the flavor a little bit nicer, so that it's not just straight up a bit of hint of applesauce. Applesauce and cinnamon, like apple pie, always goes great together. And I actually double coated the cookies as well, just to give it a little bit more of a thicker texture. I would recommend not baking these, just keeping them made and frozen raw still, just until sort of the day that you're serving them, or the night before, and then just keeping them, let them cool down and keeping them wrapped airtight. That is probably the best thing for them, because otherwise they do get soft. Definitely don't put them in the fridge, because then they get really hard and stale sometimes, and they're not very tasty that way. If you could even reheat them just before serving them and packaging them, that's always a really good thing. But yeah, I think that is pretty much everything I wanted to cover this time around. There are so many things coming up I'm really, really excited about. Really excited to do some more laid cakes. I'm really sorry that you guys can't see any sort of cross sections for these cakes. Usually do them. I had a friend mention that she was waiting for that at the end because most of my videos usually do, but as you know, the last cake I did, the Hidden Nature cake, was actually for my boss, so you can't really cut someone's birthday cake for them. I mean, yeah, you could probably say that I just want to cut out all the hassle for you, you know, so you don't have to cut your own cake. Probably won't buy it. And this cake is obviously someone else's birthday cake too, and after all that effort, I'm already terrified every time I lift it up that I'm going to like literally drop it on the floor and just cry. So I'm definitely not going to be cutting this, you know, before the birthday person actually gets to see it. So this is pretty much the whole set. It's gonna be carried by a tiny little girl, so I hope she'll be okay. Hello Steph, if you see this. Yeah, I hope you like it. And of course, the recipe's now out there, so if you're really interested, make it, tag me on Sugary Lab on Instagram and send me photos. And I hope you have a lot of fun with this. And like and subscribe if you like more of this kind of stuff. I have a lot of ideas for other fake foods coming up that I'm sort of working on as well. So at some point in the next few months, maybe they'll pop up. Depending on what fancies me, I guess, in terms of all the recipes and ideas I have right now. But until then, I'll see you guys soon. See ya, cookies!